On this week's Audiobook Club,
a swashbuckling super chef, Anthony Bourdain, reminds us not to order the fish special on a Monday.
I never order fish on Monday unless I'm eating at Le Bernardin, a 4-star restaurant where I know they're buying their fish directly from the source. I know how old most seafood is on Monday, about 4 to 5 days old. You walk into a nice 2-star place in Tribeca on a sleepy Monday evening and you see they're running a delicious-sounding special of yellowfin tuna, braised fennel, confit tomatoes, and a saffron sauce. Why not go for it? Here are the 2 words that should leap out at you when you navigate the menu: Monday and special. Here's how it works. The chef of this fine restaurant orders his fish on Thursday for delivery Friday morning. He's ordering a pretty good amount of it too, as he's not getting another delivery until Monday morning. All right, some seafood purveyors make Saturday deliveries, but the market is closed Friday night. It's the same fish from Thursday. The chef is hoping to sell the bulk of that fish, your tuna, on Friday and Saturday nights when he assumes it will be busy. He's assuming also that if he has a little left on Sunday, he can unload the rest of it then as seafood salad for brunch or as a special. Monday, it's merchandising night, when whatever is left over from the weekend is used up and hopefully sold for money. Terrible, you say? Why doesn't he throw the leftover tuna out? The guy can get deliveries on Monday, right? Sure he can. But what is preventing his seafood purveyor from thinking exactly the same way? The seafood vendor is emptying out his refrigerator too. But the Fulton Street Fish Market is open on Monday morning, you say. He can get fresh. I've been to the Fulton Street Market at 3 o'clock on Monday morning, friends, and believe me, it does not inspire confidence. Chances are good that the tuna you're thinking of ordering on Monday night has been kicking around in the restaurant's reach-ins, already cut and held with the mise en place online, commingling with the chicken and the salmon and the lamb chops for 4 days. The reach-in doors swinging open every few seconds as the line cooks plunge their fists in, blindly feeling around for what they need. These are not optimum refrigeration conditions.
hello famished listener, and welcome to Audiobook Club, the podcast about audiobooks that loves to cook with scalding hot oil and very sharp knives. I'm your chef de cuisine, Steve Pillips, in charge of taking you all the way from soup to nuts on today's culinary-themed audiobook adventure. The title I shall be slapping ostentatiously onto my chopping board this week is Kitchen Confidential: Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly. It is by Anthony Bourdain, narrated by Anthony Bourdain, with intro from Irvine, Welsh. It was published about 6 years ago, 30th of April 2020. Comes in at 8 hours and 37 minutes from Bloomsbury Publishing. Of course, a biography and a memoir. Now, to help me bring this feast to your table, I'm going to be shouting tyrant-like, like Gordon Ramsay or something, who wrote this, at my own buccaneering brand of kitchen cutthroats. First of all, my right hand, as ever, my trusty executive sous chef, Bobby Pryor. Hey, Bob.
Hey, good to be here.
And, oh, good, so I'm glad to hear it. And as always, as far away from any of our paying customers as we can keep him, elbow deep in suds, it's my potwasher, Matt Layton. I didn't think we were talking about my sanitary proclivities there. But old potwashers and kitchen potwashers. Sorry, beg your pardon. I remember that.
Hello, Steve.
That's after you've eaten, isn't it?
It's only been you so far, and I've already got 2 points of order. And actually, they're my fault. So, Kitchen Confidential: Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly. I actually had to go searching for that subtitle, because if you look at it on Audible at the moment, it says 25th Anniversary Edition, because this book came out in 2000. And I didn't read it at the time, but I remember that bit about the fish on a Monday. That was the hook they used to bring people in. And of course, it says here released in the subtitle in Audible at the moment, it says 25th Anniversary Edition, and this of course says 30th of April 2020 was the release date. Oh God, I'm boring myself now. But just to reiterate, the book was recorded in 2000. Irvine, Welsh was added in 2020, and it's been lazily relabeled on Audible to cash in on the release of the film Tony, which is about Anthony Bourdain's life, which is coming out 17th of August. There you go.
Oh, amazing. We've been caught like that before, haven't we? When we've been hoodwinked into listening to a book we thought was fresh off the peg, but actually was about 10 years old. Do you remember that? Who was that? Was that
most
Lee
weeks,
Mack, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? Yeah, it was Lee. Oh, that irritated me, didn't it? I'm very sorry. That really did get my goat.
Yeah. Still sorry about if you didn't get a refund, by the way, folks, if you thought you were getting something new with that one. Anyway, it was about 2 years ago. Anyway, let's wheel this sweet trolley into the dining room. So, Bobby, would you mind letting the listeners know how they can get hold of us and beat us to death with their meat hammer?
At this stage, we do invite you to get involved with the Audio Book Club because, yes, like all other podcasts, we'd love for you to subscribe and would be grateful if you could gently tap any like buttons that you see near our episodes. So if it says like, please like it. But we do really genuinely want you to get involved. We want to know your opinion of Matt, who we love dearly, and our presenter, Steve. Let me know what you think of them, because sometimes they give me a tough time, and I give them a tough time. Yeah. But we want your opinion. So get stuck in your favourite social media platform using the hashtag AudioBookClub or visit our website, audiobookclub.net.
Thank you, Bobs. Now it's time to apply our 3-step audio book review process to this week's title. If it's your first time with us, we've got loads of episodes you can go and entertain yourself with. So the first step is the author, where we have a look at the author, the actual human being, but who started with a blank piece of paper and crafted the book we're recommending. Next, we talk about the book. So is it any good book? Is it a good book to start off with? Should you engage with this material in the first place? And then step 3, of course, our USP here at Audio Book Club, the bit you don't get anywhere else. The audiobook itself, was it a good performance? Was it just a basic narration, competent but nothing to write home about? Or did it just blow your socks off and should win all the awards? So that's our 3-step process. We'll start with the author. So, Matt, you brought this one to the table, the kitchen table, if I may. Anthony Bourdain.
Yes. I got very lucky in the way I discovered Anthony Bourdain. I did everything in the wrong order. And if you, like me, vaguely know who he is, may I suggest that you step away at this point and perhaps do a little bit of research, take yourself on an emotional journey. What I tried to do for Steve and Bobby was say, look, this is the weird wrong way round that I discovered it. I started with his television programs and then moved on to a documentary about him and then moved on to this book. And I got so lucky that I don't know, guys, were you able to go on that journey? Did you discover Anthony Bourdain the same way that I did?
TV first for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was TV first. So I've seen clips of him and I've heard his name, but that's about as far as it's gone. But I also hear a lot of people talking about him as well. And he's one of the people you think, I must get into him. And you sort of add it to the list of people you must know to be cool with other people, you know?
Unlike Steve, I had never heard of him before. I didn't know how cool he was. I wish I did, because my dad's a chef, or was a chef. And I love to have shared him with him because my dad would have loved it. But also, you told us to watch the episode in Peru and Korea. So what I did is ignored your advice to watch the one where he visited Glasgow. So that was my experience. And then Roadrunner documentary about him, which I watched. And you say emotional journey. I wonder kind of which emotions hit with you. I know Stevie P is our presenter, but I wonder what kind of emotional hit you had compared to me.
Well, in the interest of no spoilers, because if our listener hasn't discovered what happened in what order, the same way that you did, I'm looking forward to discussing that with you later, Bobs. But I'm just going to do a thing where if you need to leave now because you don't want spoilers. I've written a little guide here for how you might want to attack the feast that is Anthony Bourdain. More by luck than by judgment, I stumbled across Anthony Bourdain in the best order. I wanted to give Bobby and Steve a chance to experience the same emotional roller coaster that I did. So I would recommend that you, if you want to hear it in the same way that Bobby and Steve did, for your amuse-bouche, watch a couple of episodes of Bourdain's CNN food and travel documentary. I mentioned Peru and Koreatown, which is in Los Angeles. But again, Bobby got the entire point by going Glasgow. It's a variety of exotic locations that he goes to that I think is the point. So if you want to do Bobby's version, do Glasgow. I also regretted not recommending Singapore. Then to follow you have to watch the documentary Roadrunner. It's a documentary about Bourdain made by his friends. And the main course is the book. We'll stick all this in the show notes. But I think that is, if you vaguely know who Anthony Bourdain is, you're not going to discover the story in that order if you just read this book. So I would recommend for full impact that you go away and do that. So if you don't want any spoilers, turn away now. All right. So Anthony Michael Bourdain was born on the 25th of June, 1956 and passed away in June 2018. He was an American celebrity chef, author, and travel documentarian. Bourdain graduated from the Culinary Institute of America in 1978. He worked in many professional kitchens, including several years as an executive chef at Brasserie Les Halles in Manhattan. He then wrote the book Kitchen Confidential, Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly, which was 2000. And the success of the book we're reading today, Kitchen Confidential, led to his broadcasting career. He starred in programs focusing on the exploration of international culture, cuisine, and the human condition, most notably Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. Then, and again, turn away now if you don't want the spoiler, in early June 2018, Bourdain was working on an episode of Parts Unknown in Strasbourg with his frequent collaborator and friend Eric Ripert. On June the 8th, 2018, Ripert became worried when Bourdain had missed dinner and breakfast. He subsequently found Bourdain dead of suicide by hanging in his hotel room. Did it hit you, Steve? Like that?
Yeah.
Did it go in that order for you?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I've seen his shows. I'd like you to explain, if you can, Parts Unknown, because the world of TV is awash with everyone globe-trotting around the world, cooking up whatever, aren't they? I mean, you have to shout above the noise for chefs, just cramming the schedules, don't you? What was it that set Parts Unknown apart from all the others for you?
I had some time on my hands. I was looking at the front page of Disney Plus while in Australia, waiting for the kids home, to come home from school. This would have been about 2020, 2021. And I enjoyed the conceit of him being, the Ramones chef, the punk rock, cigarette smoking, leather jacket wearing, earnest Hemingway, self-proclaimed literary figure. But I liked the places that he went, and I got hooked instantly by that variety we've already covered. And this is not a show where he puts a wok outside and cooks. This is him sitting down, breaking bread with people. And I mean, in the Singapore one I watched again last week, he was talking about, in Singapore, most of the people have come from India and China to be part of a one-party superstate. When they arrive as immigrants, one of the things they can do is cook food and sell it as street. And he used the word hawkers, which I wasn't comfortable with, but he used it. But the problem that he discusses over a slurpy bowl of noodles with a local journalist and food writer is that what happens with immigrants is that, of course, the next generation come along and their parents are the type of people who left their home and want to provide well for their children. So the children have gone into accountancy, computers, doctors, and lawyers. So now the average age of basically a street food hawker in Singapore is 54. Or it was at the time he made the episode. It's probably even worse now. So to me, it wasn't comedy. It had substance. It had attitude, and it had a heart.
this is where it kind of differs, doesn't it? So what we hear is this is not just a straight kind of just a chef going around looking at world food, is it? It's getting into the culture. It's sort of, it feels like a combination of people, doesn't it? A bit of Michael Palin in there, maybe.
Yeah.
And a bit of maybe someone who kind of breaks the rules a little bit, breaks the conventional norms of this kind of, documentary, this kind of factual kind of sort of programming. In, I guess, the same way, and I said I wouldn't mention Keith Floyd on this one, but Keith Floyd did that, didn't he? He broke conventions when he was on the 80s, but it was all done through humour and getting drunk and all the rest of it, and getting the cameraman involved and that sort of stuff. And it feels very earthy, it feels very real, doesn't it? And, we were talking about Michael Palin off air, weren't we, Bobby? And, our gasps went, because we loved him, in the impact that those sort of travel shows had, because he really got into it wasn't like Holiday 95 with Judith Chalmers, was it? It was properly getting involved in the culture and things.
Exactly. I mean, we will talk more about this as we talk later, but I think there's a really interesting point to make about him, which I'll make when we talk about the book. But I think, like Matt says, there's an integrity to him that is unique to his life experience. And it's a bit like talk about Baz Luhrmann. Only Anthony Bourdain could have created this kind of work, and it's because he cared about people.
Yes. Yeah. It does feel so authentic.
I'm glad you feel like that, Bobby. Because I'm glad you feel like that, Bob, because you're the person with the biggest heart here, and of course, having a big heart often involves being tough, and I think that this very much comes across in the television. So you both mentioned Michael Palin and Keith Floyd, and of course, what would come after that would, of course, have to be disrupting the norm, which is I love the way somebody pointed out to me once. When you see Michael Palin, ex-Monty Python, now presenter of BBC travel documentaries, paddling down a river at sunrise, who do you think ironed his shirt? And I think, because of course there's a crew of 25 people, as much as it looks like he's traveling on his own, and these things have to be planned, otherwise they don't make good television. The punk rock aesthetic of Parts Unknown, it chops together loads of grainy footage and speeding traffic in Singapore or beautiful mountains, and then they put some glitches on it to make it seem more punky. It still takes the same number of people to do that, which is why I say I think that's why I use the word conceit, because it is the way it's framed, and I'm intrigued, Bobby, to just to think that you found that that worked. I was wondering how you would feel, and would watching 2 episodes of it give the documentary Roadrunner an emotional impact for you? How did you feel when you watched Roadrunner?
Well, there's 2 things. Just to go back, because why I ignored some of your rules is because I found one on Glasgow, and the thing is Glasgow I know. So I wanted to see how he coped with a UK city. And he's not dealing in London, he's dealing with Glasgow, which is a bit, it's one of those things. So I don't want to diss Glasgow, but it has troubles. And interestingly, the way he describes Glasgow and paints a picture of Glasgow, both good and bad, and how it struggles, because it's not simply good and bad. He explains where the struggles are, and he talks to the chief of police. He has a connection with anywhere he goes because he goes and talks to the people at every level. He's not finding the finest restaurants and the finest, most important people in the city. He's finding that city and why it's important. Also, by the way, I just want to point this out, it's important. He said Glasgow was one of his top 3 favourite cities. First of all, he said in the UK, then he said in Europe, and then he went, thing is Glasgow in Europe? It feels older than everywhere in Europe. And I thought that was really important. He loved it. And that sort of thing is he has a love for it despite its flaws. And that's a bit like Palin as well. That's what they see is, yep, this is what it is, all of it, even the grubby bits, and I still love it.
Mm. Okay, so having this time, and again, that so far, watching Parts Unknown, you've gone through what we won't call an emotional journey that I have, so that you're engaged enough that then move. And at that point, I went, "Who is this? Who is this guy? I really like this," and went on to watch the Roadrunner documentary. And I didn't know what was in it. How was that part of the emotional journey for you? Because you weren't aware of the fact that he'd hung himself in a hotel room in Strasbourg, were you, before you went into that?
Didn't know about him at all. Devastated, because also he's a smart human being. He knows the human condition and its struggles. He can see the unfairness of the world. He knows how capitalism works and all the kind of government constrictions on everybody that we all have to live with. Some suffer more than others, but he also can see, I think he can see a situation and see in a people that most of us don't want to and maybe can't. He has a language to understand it and appreciation. So what makes me really sad about him ending his life is, in all that he's seen in the world, he didn't see enough beauty to keep going. And one of his friends described him as cynical. And one time he was on holiday, he was less cynical. And what makes me worry is all of his life experience had built up so much that he couldn't see enough good to keep going. And that's really sad. He was a man that had successful relationships for a time with women who loved him. He had children, and he couldn't hang on. And that makes me really sad.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's just the worst when you get into that kind of state of mind that you can't see a way out, can you? And it's a real loss. And looking at taking it back to his real talent in the kitchen, he really showed some of the dishes you would not think of. It really did bring world cuisine to people's TV screens. And Matt, you had a few suggestions, a few sort of highlights of the things that he tried around the world here, it looks like.
Yeah, no, I've done that, and I have put in a list of bullet points that says black-coloured blood sausages in Finland and sheep testicles in Morocco and an entire cobra. But Steve, to be honest with you, I think that all... Now we've been watching I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, or whatever it's called in your particular region, all of that has perhaps lost its impact.
Yeah.
And I think actually there is more that
I'm sure Anthony Bourdain wouldn't have wanted that to be his legacy, so, my food was featured on
But I don't think it is,
I'm
Steve, and I think the legacy is hidden in the book. And because I think even Bobby would say that that's... Well, actually, I want to hear what Bobby says. I'm really, really excited to hear what Bobby thought of this book, which is a totally different part of his life, but possibly a more significant part of his legacy.
Thanks for bringing in stage 2 there, Matt. It's time to address the book itself. So, Bob, can I ask you, please, without the grand setup of what you're about to do here, just to introduce you, it's simply Bobby Pryor reads the blurb from the book.
After 25 years of sex, drugs, bad behaviour and haute cuisine, chef and novelist Anthony Bourdain decided to tell all, and he meant all. Now, from his first oyster in the Durande as a child to his lowly position as a dishwasher or potwasher in a honky-tonk fish restaurant in Provincetown, from the kitchen of the Rainbow Room atop the Rockefeller Center to drug dealers in the East Village, from Tokyo to Paris and back to New York again, Bourdain's tales of the kitchen are as passionate as they are unpredictable and as shocking as they are funny. Now, Kitchen Confidential will make your mouth water and it'll make your belly ache with laughter and leave you wanting more.
So, Bob, did it do all those 3 things for you? Tell us what you thought.
Yeah, I just got to bring just a bit of literature into it, because Keats wrote a poem, which I read when I was about 14. It was called St. Agnes Eve. And one of the sections in it was the description of food laid out for the wedding feast. And I remember as a teenager reading it going, oh, that's gorgeous. I've never heard of those things. There were fruits and ways of describing delicacies of the time and fancies that I just sat in this English class going, I want all that. And I've always thought about that paragraph. And I've also thought about the Reader's Digest Cookery Yearbook that my dad had. Now, my dad was a chef who's brought up on French way of cuisine. So But they had this huge book that had the most amazing illustrations of food that I'd never seen. And of course, he'd bring home tins of lychees. And I mean, this was the 70s when we were, just coming out of proper home cooked food, where that was kind of looked down on. And then we were buying sliced bread and thinking it was, the best thing since. And there was this cookery book. So there's a thing about the book that's really heavily laden with delicious food descriptions. It will make you want to cook things that you've never want to cook. If you've never boiled an egg before, suddenly you will run to the kitchen cupboard and you'll get eggs out. Don't put them in the fridge, don't forget. And you will boil an egg for the first time. So there's all this about food and food integrity that he talks about. But the book is also about not only his upbringing, but about really the world of the kitchen and the commercial kitchen, not only your home kitchen, because the commercial kitchen is a whole different situation. As I said, my dad was a chef, so we used to get first-hand kind of demonstrations of what it was like in the workplace. There's always a head chef who usually is a nightmare. And Irvine Welsh's introduction, by the way, is worth everything. If you don't ever read the book, if you don't ever read this book, if you see nothing of the TV series, if you see nothing of Roadrunner, the documentary about him, listen to Irvine Welsh's description or introduction into this chef. Because who knew that Irvine Welsh and him were connected in the way that Irvine Welsh used to work in kitchens? He has a description of what it's like working in descriptions. Very military, because everybody has to know their place. You can only serve 300 covers and get them out all on time if everybody's at their station doing their thing. So it's like being in the army. I think it's more, from my experience, because I've never been in the armed services, is it's a bit like putting on a show. There's always a lead star, and there's always the ensemble, and there's always the technical crew, and there's the people that serve the ice cream. And it's a bit like that. It only goes well if everyone's in their place and does the right thing. And so he talks about that, but he also talks about the people involved in those. So you get all these illustrations of life, of all the kitchens he's worked on, from being a kid and being the potwasher in the kind of crab shack, and the beautiful descriptions of human beings that he loves, but is also so unlike, and they're not like me either. So it's really nuanced. It's really broad at the same time, but it's very specific to characters. And you can see his affection for them, and that's the point. His affection for human beings. He's not talking about statesmen, although he did, by the way, hang out with Obama. He's not talking about, great achievers. Steve, this is the why I love this book, because this is, again, little people doing great things together. And most of the time, they get ignored. They get paid badly. And he's the one that draws people's attention to this. And I wonder, actually, in New York at the time, who read this book and actually thought it was a great book for them to realize that when they go into a restaurant at 10 to 10 at night, which is 10 minutes before the restaurant closes, about how inappropriate and bad-mannered and selfish and arrogant that is to walk into a restaurant that late, when usually people get paid 39 hours a week, but chefs and cooking staff are working 120. So they're not getting paid for that. And then to complain about the food in some way, or they want something that's impossible to cook in 10 minutes. I wonder whether people changed their restaurant behavior because of this book, because they should have done. There you go.
Feels like that sort of Band of Pirates kind of vibe, doesn't it? Working in the kitchen and kitchen life. Is it something you can relate to? So you mentioned your dad was a chef.
It's all his tales coming home. Long hours. Yeah. He was always away at Christmas, New Year, because of course everybody else is going out at Christmas. That's when they want their special dinners, don't they? Everyone is out late at night. So I don't really see my dad. Christmas time was kind of, you wouldn't see him till late that night when he came home after doing Christmas dinners for people. And I tell you what I do find interesting. My dad used to talk about certain people that usually were pot washers. My dad was like him in the fact that he nurtured what some people would say the losers in life that were never going to achieve anything. And in just about every single kitchen my dad worked in, he brought people up. So the pot washers became sous chefs. They learned all the skills that they didn't. So dad raised them up so they could get better work and better paid work and be treated better. And also a sense of pride and a sense of themselves. Because the other thing is, a kitchen is based on discipline. That's why we talk about the army. It's discipline. And dad said, look, if you don't have discipline, you're never going to get on anywhere. So my dad was a great nurturer, a great man, a great chef. And, as many chefs in this country, especially I suppose maybe now they're recognised a little bit more, but generally mass catering, I think, is undervalued. And I think it's about time.
And the toughest working environment as well. And Matt, have you ever worked in a sort of similar kind of tough working environment?
I'm not going to claim to. I've done my fair share of tricky jobs, but I don't think I'm in a position to. I once spent 3 months in a warehouse putting the magnetic security stickers onto the plastic cases that went around CDs, and it was literally peel off, put on sticker for 3 months. So I've done that, but again, there was no sense that wasn't very cool. And but there's this thing about this book, Bobby. You mentioned your dad bringing the potwashers on. Anthony Bourdain in this book says quite early on, I don't want to graduate from a cookery school. Bring me your down at heel immigrants and people who are unemployable. You can teach skills, I think he says, but you can't teach character. My word last week for this book was punk rock television chef, but actually I think the pirate analogy is better because it actually makes, even though it's that horrible, it makes working in a kitchen and the going out afterwards and the camaraderie and the some of the horrors of it. Like he gets to a stage where, now my hands are as damaged as I always wanted them to be. You know, there's physical pain, there's exhaustion, there is the bit where you don't get to be with your kids at Christmas, but there's also, you know, everybody's got, in the oyster house you mentioned, Bob, in the restaurant in near Cape Cod, this is the first time that he sees the chefs in the kitchen from his position as pot washer, and they are the rock stars. They are the people with big hoop earrings. They've torn the sleeves off of their chef's whites. They work damn hard and they take no shit. And I think I watched the first 3 seasons of The Bear, which is another Disney Plus thing, which is a recent Emmy Award-winning drama about how hard it is to work in the kitchen, yet how cool it is and how things can go wrong. And that program wouldn't be cool, I suddenly realized, if it weren't for this. This is the book that sets up the aesthetic of the pirates in the kitchen, working. Actually, it does sound almost like under war conditions, under steady shell fire. So I get that. And Bob, as you say, the bit to me that is the heart of this book is the bit where he says, look, if I am loyal to you, I'm going to be incredibly loyal to you. We will butt heads. We will fall out. I will shout at you when you drop stuff. But ultimately I'll go to war for you because we have this strong bond of having worked 17 hours a day, 7 days a week for no money. And I just think I didn't know any of that about Anthony Bourdain until I got to read this book. So the order that I watched things in, even watching the Roadrunner thing, this book really helped me understand that his heart, as it were.
Also,
it's pretty sobering, isn't it?
It is, but I just want to talk about this, about how excited we should be about the food we eat and what we do. When he talks about being a boy in France and going on holiday, what makes him decide that food is going to be a major part of his life is he goes and tries an oyster for the very first time. Now, he's the one that bravely does it when his parents and his mum and dad and his brother go, I'm not sure, and he swallows it down and he loves it. And it's interesting because he said that's when he realized that food had power, and that's what he loved, and he decided that would be. He didn't kind of say that would be his life, but he really got addicted to it. And also, it's just also about being in a different environment as a kid. So he was in France where you have wine, you have different kinds of food. I mean, you think about the difference between the culinary cuisine in France at the time and what was happening in America. So he was exposed to a whole different way of eating, which I think is really important. I mean, he actually said that of all the things he'd eaten, the most disgusting thing wasn't the whole list of interesting things that Matt wrote. I mean, fabulous things. It was actually a chicken McNugget. He said that was the most disgusting things he ever ate. So that gives you an idea of how he was. The integrity of food is important, and the taste, and what you put into it. So You should never, ever, ever worry about how much time it takes you to learn to make something properly if you love it, and then you can share it, I think.
It feels like to me that all three of us are loving this book right now. So in traditional kind of podcast way, I'm just going to ask us to sum this book up to each of you in 15 seconds, how you felt about this book before we go into the break. So Bobby, you first.
If you've never cooked before, if you don't know what you enjoy eating, you've got a limited palate, if you've got a little one going off to university and the cookery is going to be their world, get them this. I think this is the best cookery book that you could get anybody.
Oh, and Matt?
He's a pirate. Who doesn't want to be a pirate in a band of merry men and women? It's rock and roll. And but again, it's rock and roll with a heart.
So that's what they thought. What did you think? You can subscribe to us. Gently tap those buttons and you'll see all our episodes. We want you to get involved. Did you enjoy Kitchen Confidential as much as Matt and Bobby did? We want your opinion. Speak your brains. You can get involved. Hashtag Audiobook Club. Visit our website, audiobookclub.net. So clearly so far, we all love the book. But was it a good audiobook? We'll find out in a minute. Welcome back to Audiobook Club. Time for us to get stuck into the main course, but it will be shorter because we love the book. But was it any good as an audiobook? Anthony Bourdain narrates this. Matt, tee us up.
Well, funnily enough, Bobby picked exactly the clip that I've picked for this section. So well done, Bobbs. You're a mind reader. For the second time this year, we are dealing with somebody's formative childhood memories of France. At this point, Bourdain is 9 years old and he is intrigued by this country where kids can drink watered down wine and you can get a cigarette on a Sunday. There are motorbikes and firecrackers. And at one moment during this holiday, his parents don't take him and his brother with them to a certain restaurant. They leave them in the car with a stash of Tintin books and some crisps, as the parents go to La Pyramide, which is one of the serious foodie establishments in France. And at that point, he suddenly realized, where he'd hated all the French food before, that actually, bleep you, I'm going to eat more difficult stuff than you. And a couple of days later, they go oyster fishing with a leathery old French oyster farmer. And yeah, as Bobby mentioned, he has his first oyster and it changes his life.
We'd already polished off the brie and baguette and downed the Evian, but I was still hungry and characteristically said so. Monsieur Saint-Jour, on hearing this, as if challenging his American passengers, inquired in his thick Girondais accent if any of us would care to try an oyster. My parents hesitated. I doubt they'd realize they might have to actually eat one of the raw, slimy things we were currently floating over. My little brother recoiled in horror. But I, in the proudest moment of my young life, stood up smartly, grinning with defiance, and volunteered to be the first. And in that unforgettably sweet moment in my personal history, that one moment still more alive for me than so many of the other firsts which followed, first pussy, first joint, first day in high school, first published book, or any other thing, I attained glory. Monsieur Saint-Jour beckoned me over to the gunwale, where he leaned over, reached down until his head nearly disappeared underwater, and emerged holding a single silt-encrusted oyster, huge and irregularly shaped, in his rough claw-like fist. With a snubby, rust-covered oyster knife, he popped the thing open and handed it to me, everyone watching now, my little brother shrinking away from this glistening, vaguely sexual-looking object still dripping and nearly alive. I took it in my hand, tilted the shell back into my mouth as instructed by the now beaming Monsieur Saint-Jour, and with one bite and a slurp, wolfed it down. It tasted of seawater, of brine and flesh, and somehow of the future. Everything was different now, everything. I'd not only survived, I'd enjoyed. This, I knew, was the magic I had until now been only dimly and spitefully aware of. I was hooked. My parents' shudders, my little brother's expression of unrestrained revulsion and amazement only reinforced the sense that I had somehow become a man.
He's good, isn't he? He's good. So, come on then, Matt, your verdict on Anthony Bourdain off the back of that clip, and you're teeing up there on whether this book was a performance or a competent narration.
So, a little bit of both, actually. Read by the author, not always a good thing, sometimes an excellent thing. This couldn't have been read by anybody else. funnily enough, the bit I've suddenly realised where I was burbling on about the fact that the book was recorded in 2000 earlier on actually feeds into this, because he is not a polished media professional as he reads this book. There's a little bit, there's not quite enough showmanship in what he's doing. It's a little bit rushed and a little bit casual. But I guess it could be argued, as punk rock man, I'm not going to bend to the rules of big publishing. So, look, it's an authentic performance for the man in 2000. I wonder how different it would have sounded had he made it to 2025 or 26, where we are now. In many ways, it was a narration. But in the same way, actually, his bit where he went around the world and slurped noodles and sat down and talked to police chiefs, I think the whole of that, there's artifice in it. There's a little bit of performance. So he plays the character of Anthony Bourdain very well. Is that too convoluted? I apologise.
No, it sounds good. Bobby, can you have a more simplistic answer? Not that there was anything wrong with Matt's answer there.
No, what I would say is I actually agree with Matt completely, is it can't be anybody else. But what I think is it's a sense of place. I wouldn't have him recorded this in the studio. And I think that's it, especially that opening, that, the talk about his childhood. I think I would have invested in a tiny recording outfit and taken him to record some of that in the outside, in the real world, and also had him do the narration in a kitchen. I know it's really difficult because of sound, but I think it's being in the studio that limited him. That's the thing. He just needed a different sense of place.
I think now it's a really good point made there, actually, about recording in year 2000 versus 2026, when audiobooks have completely mushroomed, particularly with the advent of Audible. There's a lot more production goes into it, a lot more thought probably as well. But it was before, it was just kind of knock it out on a cassette sort of thing, end of side one or whatever. And it's a really interesting point. That's probably, we'll have a discussion about that another time. So for you then, Bobby, what are we saying, narration or performance for this one?
Narration.
Narration. Okay, interesting. This is not going the way I thought it would be. I just thought it'd be amazing. I'll tell you for why, because having seen the videos, having seen Parts Unknown, and it's a very Americanized production. There is constant music throughout that show. He's constantly narrating during the show as well. A lot of American documentaries never let the pictures breathe, do they? It's got to have music. It's got to have something. Dead air is a crime. But his voice is so, there's a rawness and a roughness to it, which feels quite genuine to me. But that's just watching the TV shows and so on. And Matt, for you, narration or performance?
I'm going to go, if that's the barrier between, is it top quality, which it often is on this show, it's just a narration, but most of his life was a performance. I'm looking forward, I don't know about you, in fact I want to know about you, Steve, looking forward to seeing the film. I want to see how that transfers to the cinema. Absolutely, yeah. The film is out soon as we record, so worth hooking on and listening to this episode. Well, obviously there's no choice now. You probably have listened to this episode. We're right at the end of the episode, so yeah, the movie's out pretty shortly. But what a life this man has led. Are we wrapped up now with Anthony Bourdain and his amazing globe-trotting culinary cuisine culture phenomenon? I think we've made our point.
Yeah.
Fair play. Well, I think it's time to make something a little bit more rural, a bit more village-like. I think we feel like something Chris Chibnall coming on here for next week, don't we? We are going into the Parkwood murders. We are being fiction next week. It's the thrilling new detective novel from Sunday Times best-selling author of Death at the White Hart. And he also knocked out Broadchurch and Doctor Who as well. Just a coincidence that I brought him to the table next week. So Chris Chibnall is the author of the Parkwood Murders. It's book 2 of the Nicola Bridge series. It's narrated by Jessica Gunning, as was the first book. Jessica Gunning, of course, was Baby Reindeer and was the person who called her victim the baby reindeer. So yes, she was a shy and retiring Scots lady who hounded this stand-up comic for ages. If you've not seen it, then do watch it. It's a bit of it takes a funny turn. Obviously, that's a very sort of high level way of looking at it. Nevertheless, The Parkwood Murders is already out. It's out on the 16th of July at 9 hours and 33 minutes from Penguin. Are we looking forward to this one, guys? A little bit of murder mystery going on. It's a fiction, Bobby, but I think we'll be okay.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's not our favourites, but you've suggested this. So again, as is the Stevie P kind of seal of approval, I'll give it a go.
Bless your heart. And Matt there with a reassuring, if slightly cynical hum there. I'm sure it'd be fine. You like a murder mystery.
Hoodwinked.
I'm trying to get in your wheelhouse, mate. That's what I'm trying to do.
It's the definition of, here, Matt, you love crime dramas, don't you? Love crazy crime. Yeah. I've got one. It's written by a guy called Chris Chibnall. Google's Chris Chibnall.
Don't know who he is.
It's a Doctor Who book.
Yeah. I've also got a murder mystery coming with Russell T. Davis and then one by Stephen Moffat. I don't know if we can have a go at those. Anyway, just sort of Terrence Dicks getting a bit into the law now. A classic.
Really? So I've been hoodwinked. That is the definition of hoodwinked. I'll give it a go. And because Stevie P says, like Bobby says. Bobby says, Stevie P says.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly that. So are you? Have you listened to the first book of Chris Chibnall's Nicola Bridge series, his first debut? You can't get a second debut novel, really, can you? Thinking about it, I'll rework that one in the edit. That'll go out anyway because Matt said it. It's a detective series. It's very parochial, set in little villages, but he's very good with Broadchurch, isn't he? Building that tension. That's what I'm really interested about, is the building of the tension, like in Broadchurch. And that'll be next week's book. So tune in for that. Give us your thoughts on that one. The hashtag is Audio Book Club. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky at Audiobook Show. You can also find us on Instagram under our respective other titles if you want to get in touch with us to talk about the other two. Whinging Pom for Matt, Real Bobby Pryor for Bobby, and Steve K Audiobooks for Steve, i.e. me. YouTube, our episodes go up on a weekly basis. Audiobook Club 1540 is the channel, and all our episodes you can get on audiobookclub.net. Until then, when it will be murder in a pub, we'll see ya.
Now you sold it.
You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/Libsyn. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.